Hello guys, it's Wuhan. So on the 16th of September, I was lucky enough to speak to a British expat that's currently living in Vietnam, and we basically spoke about our experiences. So I hope you enjoyed the video. Don't forget to check out her channel and subscribe. And once again, thank you very much for the support and stay safe. Can you introduce yourself to the audience?
Yeah, my name's Eve Hemingway. I have lived in Vietnam for almost 2 years. My partner is Vietnamese and we live here with my 3-year-old son.
That's cool. Okay, so I have quite a few questions for you as well, based on your experience in Vietnam. So how did you react when you first heard about the coronavirus?
Well, when we first heard about it was at the end of January, and the way that the government acted, they just cancelled flights immediately, which made me definitely think like, oh, this sounds really bad. But as soon as we heard about it, it was when we were supposed to be traveling back to the UK for a month, and we thought we were going to have to cancel the travel plans because we had a feeling that this is going to be a worldwide thing, but we just went along with it anyway because the flight wasn't cancelled, therefore I just assumed it was okay. And when I was in the UK, when people were talking about it, it just made me feel absolutely fine. No one was worried or anything. And then when we came back after a month in March, that's when things started to feel really real. And yeah, I was like, this sounds like it's gonna be pretty bad.
Okay, so the second question is, so what did the Vietnamese government, what did they do? You know, when it got really serious, what did they do?
So the first thing they did was I think it was the 30th of January, they stopped issuing visas for Chinese citizens, so tourist visas to come here, which was I think it was in the middle of, or towards the end of the Lunar New Year or Chinese New Year. And yeah, that was a pretty big thing to stop visas, because that means people couldn't come into the country from China that weren't citizens or didn't have family here. So then the next day is when they actually just cancelled all flights to China. So I had friends here that were traveling because they were they're expats working in China, and then they came to Vietnam for the New Year, and they were already traveling in Vietnam, and then they could not get back to China because they'd stopped flights coming in and out. So yeah, that was the first thing Vietnam did, just stop the flights. Yeah.
Wow, that's crazy. So the government, did they lock down your communities? If so, how long for?
Yeah, so there was like a national lockdown, I think from the 1st of April, and that consisted of like no travel in and out of provinces, or even like districts and provinces, but mainly the cities. So that was where it was controlled. If you were to exit Saigon, where I'm from, or where I live, you weren't allowed to come back in. So if you were to exit and go to another city, you would have had to be tested and then quarantined. So that's how they really kept you where you are. And they did warn you about traveling from one province to another. But I don't think that was controlled, because during the lockdown, we were only locked down for 2 weeks. So yeah, those 2 weeks we only went out once, I think, and yeah, it was very quiet. So people definitely listened. But yeah, 2 weeks. But schools had been closed since the New Year, so schools didn't open until June. So they must have been closed for about months. Yeah, and the first people to go back to school were the people that had exams, and then they went from people that had exams all the way down to kindergarten, which was a month later. So they gradually sent people back to schools. But yeah, only 2 weeks of a national lockdown where you had to stay inside. But after, even before that, I wasn't at work anywhere because there was a case where I work where a group of people had been to a bar where the virus had been, and then so people from my work had been in this bar where the virus is. So we got an email at 3:00 in the morning saying, do not come to work, you need to quarantine for 14 days. And then after 10 days, that's when we had the national lockdown. But yeah, we didn't quarantine for too long.
Yeah, 3 months. Oh, we was in lockdown for 3 months.
Yeah, oh, gosh. That's quite a difference.
So, you know, the community where you lived, like, was you able to leave your gated community? Was you able to leave during the lockdown?
So I actually live in a house rather than an apartment. So to leave a house, so basically in Vietnam, they would only lock down, apart from the national lockdown that we had for 14 days, if there was just one case within a community, that whole street and like the surrounding streets had to lock down, and they would put the tents up so you couldn't get out, or if you did get out, you had to be like what you said with the temperature, and that was a lot easier in apartment complexes than to do it in streets. But the Vietnamese government, apart from the national lockdown, they would only lock down the places where the virus was, rather than locking down everyone. They would just target the places where they know the virus is.
So it was quite easy for you to go out and buy groceries. You didn't have any.
Yeah, well, markets were not allowed to be on, so you couldn't go to a market. Also, if you go to a supermarket, or if you go and try and buy food, because there's a lot of street food here, you just go and you buy your food and you take it home. If you went to any of these places, you had to have your temperature checked. You always had to wear a mask. Even now, you have to wear a mask, and you have hand sanitizer. All those things are still in place now. They've not changed those. But the place where I work is in a mall, in a big mall. And when the only time we went out during the lockdown was we went to that mall, and I got turned away because my temperature was too high. So they were very strict about it. If you had a high temperature, even though it's really hot here in Vietnam all the time, even if it was just to do with the weather, they would just turn you away. So yeah.
In Wuhan, it's hot as well. Like during the summer, it's like 35, 40 degrees in Wuhan. It's crazy. Yeah.
Is it really humid as well?
100% humidity. It's crazy. It's one of the hottest cities in China.
Oh.
Because they're all along the Yangtze River, you know, the big city.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
We had like a different situation where, you know, the communities were locked down, so we wasn't able to leave the community. So the only way we could buy groceries was using WeChat. Do you use WeChat in Vietnam?
No, we use Grab. Have you heard of Grab?
Yeah, Grab. That's like Just Eat, yeah, Just Eat or.
Yeah. Yeah. So that's another thing that we did. There were, if you did go out, the only people on the roads would be Grab drivers delivering food. So a lot of people, instead of going out to buy their groceries, they would just get the Grab drivers to do it.
The good thing about the community where we lived, what they did is they set up, for example, all the community would join like a WeChat group, and then we would like bulk buy our groceries. So, and we would WeChat is like Facebook, PayPal, everything combined into one app. What my wife would do, she would order all the food that we need for like 1 week, pay for it, but the whole community would pay for it together, like a bulk buy. And then the delivery drivers, we got Erlenmeyer and Meituan, they would deliver it to the front gate. We'd get like a number, we'd go and collect it, and then we'd like collect it at the front gate and then take it home.
Oh, that's amazing. So was that just done by the community rather than an organization? It was done by the people.
Yeah, the communities, they kind of like organized it, because in China, like you have like the WeChat groups, all the communities join that WeChat group. At the beginning, I have to say, it was a nightmare. A lot of Chinese people actually in Wuhan complained about this in the first week, but after like the second week, everything was like well organized. Like we never had any troubles. At the beginning, the food prices, some of the small convenience stores thought, oh, we can make extra money. We can like increase the prices and make extra money. There was like a rumor going around online on Twitter, and it was true. That was true. I have to admit that was true. So the Chinese government, the local government, they kind of like punished those people. Told them, okay, if you do that, close your shop. You can't. So they only allowed the big supermarkets like Walmart, Metro, 24/7. These kind of supermarkets were only allowed to like operate during the lockdowns.
Oh, that's interesting. That wasn't the case here. During the second lockdown, I don't know if you heard, but we got cases in Da Nang, which is in the middle part, and they seem to all be clustered there. And we always get texts on Zalo and text messages as well of updates to do with the virus, like each day, sometimes like multiple times a day, about like warnings and things that we need to do right now. And one of those things was that they are stopping all food places from selling food, and you could only go to like the main supermarkets. But they just advise everyone to like stay at home anyway. So yeah, that must have been really hard. That's what they did in the second lockdown, but they didn't do that in the first lockdown. Everything, we were allowed to buy food from anywhere. But they seem to have controlled the second lockdown a lot better, I think.
No,
so we think.
During the lockdown in Wuhan, you know, like the metro, the metro stations, like the subway, the shopping, they literally sanitized or disinfected the whole of these places. You know, you see these Chinese people in the hazmat suits, and they got these guns spraying. They did it everywhere.
Wow.
Like schools, train stations, schools, shops, even on the streets. You know, you must have heard the news about there was these like trucks going around like spraying loads of stuff. That's true. I have to admit. That's true.
Yeah. That was the same here as well. But not they would only do it in the areas where they thought there was an infection. Even like there was like 3 stages, or 3 contact stages. So if you had the virus and you share a room, like you're in the same apartment room as another person, I think they are contact number 1. And then if that person then goes to work, those people are then number 2. And then those people that are at work, they then go home to their families, they are then contact number 3. And I think it's number 1 and number 2 had to quarantine, and those areas were all those areas were disinfected, like what you said, similar. And then the third group of people that were the contacts, they were also warned about them being down the line of being on the contact list. And this was all done by the app. So more or less everyone has the app. Yeah, and then on the app it's pinpointed where the first person where that person that has the virus, where they had been for the past 14 days. Yeah, and when it was put on the app, it was only a couple of days later that we would have a whole description of that person, of where they have been, like what time they went to that location, who they might have been in contact with. Yeah, it's done really well. Test and trace, what they call it in the UK, their attempt at that. I think in Vietnam they definitely succeeded at that.
Generally speaking, I think in most Asian countries, like, you know, China, Vietnam, Thailand, Korea, Japan, they actually controlled it quite well. You know, they listen to the government. You know, they listen to the government. That's the difference between like the West and the East. You know,
definitely, and you wouldn't think it either at the beginning. Like I just assumed that it would just be the East suffering and the West actually listening to the government, but no, it's completely the opposite.
Vietnam is a communist country as well, isn't it? So
yeah,
the government, what they say, if you don't, then you get punished. Yeah, basically, it's the same in China, but it's
yeah.
You know, people think in China it's like communist, it's bad, but I've been living it for like 8 years, you know, and I have to say my life has been 5 times better than it was in the UK.
Right? Yeah, I agree.
The honest truth, I haven't experienced any, like, although some of the administration stuff and the government offices, sometimes they do things really slow and you see things like, what the hell? But that's normal. Yeah. It's such a big country, people, you know, and they have to use like this kind of way to manage the people, otherwise they won't get anywhere, you know?
Yeah. That's true.
The next question, you kind of touched on that, yeah. So, did the Vietnamese government introduce like a track and trace system? And then can you tell me about that, how it all works?
Yeah, actually, like apart from the app that I talked about before, they've made another app now, which I do not think is as effective. So the first app we still use. It just, if you get the virus, then you have to, like, obviously, like, the authorities know because they've tested you, and you have to quarantine, and then you have to give your details, and then these details are then later released to the public. But this new app is like, I'm not sure the name of it, but it's called Blue Zone. And it's done, you have to keep your Bluetooth on, and it basically, if you scan it, I think it tracks your location, but you can scan it for other people that have their Bluetooth on as well, and you can see if there's another person that has been in contact or has been to a place where that virus has been. So I guess it's from your location, so it follows you on your location. But we're not told to have this. We're not told that we need to have it on our phones. Well, we are told to have it, but it's not like regulated. They don't make sure everyone has it. So I don't know how that's worked. I think that app was a bit of a failure. I think the first app was good.
It's quite similar to like the one in Wuhan. Basically, like for the first 2 weeks, like when I left my community, I had to like get my temperature taken. And when they're happy with my temperature, yeah, we have to like download a government app. It's like all done by the government, and then basically we like you said, register your details. I have to put my passport details, my name, my personal details.
Yeah, that's the same with us.
What you do is like every place you go to, they got like a QR code. You just use the app, you scan the code, and it brings up all your details. Like if it's green, that means you haven't got the virus. If it's yellow, it means you was in contact with someone. If it's red, you had the virus.
Oh, wow.
It's like same with it's location based as well. So the yellow means that you was like in contact with someone or a place where they had it. You know what I mean?
Wow. Yeah.
It worked. It was quite successful, and we was using it for maybe 4 months, 5 months, and then recently they stopped using isn't it? You just have to like scan, use the thermal thermometer thing to scan like read your temperature. But
Oh, wow.
it was quite successful. It was good, but like in America, UK, people are not happy with this. Even though you have to give your details when you apply for like credit or stuff like that. That's crazy.
Oh, so in the UK, they didn't want to give their details.
You want to be tracked and traced.
Oh my gosh, I didn't know that. I didn't know they were arguing against that. That's so stupid.
It worked quite well in it was able to like track and trace people like who had the virus.
Yeah, that's so interesting because so that's like a step up from how it was here in Vietnam. Like you had to, even though we have the app, you have to look yourself to see if you've been in these places, and you had to do it yourself. Whereas like for you, it's actually on the app and it actually shows up whether you have been in the same location as the person that's had the virus. But yeah, no, here you were contacted by the authorities though. If you had been in contact, they know and they will find you and they will take you away.
Okay, so the next question here. So did you get tested for the virus?
No, I have not had a test. Although when I said about the people, so the place where I work, there was a bar that had the virus, and then my colleagues had been to that bar. So they were the first form of contact. So therefore, I was the second form of contact, and I was just told to quarantine. This was right at the beginning. This was in March. So I told like my partner, he got really sick like a couple of days into our quarantine, and I was like, oh my gosh, this is really bad. You need to get tested. And we rang and they were like, what are your symptoms? And he says, well, I've been sick. And they were like, oh, they're not really symptoms, so you just stay home for now and just make sure you don't go out. And I remember being really annoyed because I was like, I thought they wanted to test us, and I would rather just him have the test and then at least we know. But no, they refused to give him a test. And like my two friends that went to that bar, so the media said that because this bar was like a pretty big case. It was where the British pilot, he was in that bar. He was the one that had the virus, and he ended up being the worst case in Vietnam, and they saved his life. But he was in a coma for a long time. But yeah, he survived. This was before the first death, so he was a pretty big thing. They did everything to save his life. But yeah, that was from this bar, and it was very well publicized in the media. Everyone was saying like how everyone's being taken to these camps if they went to the bar. I know people that went to the bar and they did go to the camps, but my two friends who were colleagues of mine, they tried to get a test and they were refused. But they were the only people that I knew that went to the bar and that they were refused. But other people were quarantined. So I'm not sure why my partner was refused, and also my two colleagues were refused the test, which made me at the beginning very skeptical. Like, are they doing the test?
That's crazy. Okay, so next question. So how many people have died in Wuhan so far?
In Wuhan?
I mean,
in Vietnam?
How many people have died in Vietnam? My bad.
I think it's in its 30s now. Let me just check. We have the statistics on the app. Yeah. At the moment, there are 1,063 infected and 35 have died. The people that have died are mainly, it was during the second wave, so we didn't have any deaths up until I think it was August. What is it now? I think maybe the 30th of July. But yeah, it was during the second wave that we got the first death, and it was unfortunately in a hospital. The virus had got into the hospital, and the hospital was mainly people there with life end of term illnesses, like terminal illnesses. So unfortunately, like, yeah, it got into this hospital. And I know, like, the media in the UK kept saying at the beginning, oh, the people that have died are the people with underlying health conditions. And yeah, that's very much what they kept saying here, and they do keep saying it. They say, like, oh, they have these health conditions, although I think the youngest was in their 30s. So I don't know, I hate it when they say that it's because they had underlying health conditions, even though they didn't die of that. They still would have had years left to live. But yeah, the deaths have come from mainly that hospital in Da Nang.
Because I was like keeping track of what the tabloids were writing, like, overseas, and most of it was like nonsense, you know. I was like, what are they talking about? They don't even know. It was crazy.
Yeah, because the people that are dying, and it's been proven in the UK, like, you can be really young. There's children that have died. There's people that don't have health conditions that have died. I think it really annoys me when they do say, well, they died of it, but they also had underlying health conditions. Yeah.
Okay, so next question. So, how many cases are you getting, like, each day? Like,
we've not had any community transmission for about 8 or 9 days now. Before the second wave at the end of July, the beginning of August, we had no cases, no community transmission for almost 100 days. I think it was 99 days. So yeah, over 3 months. And then suddenly we got the transmission again, and the highest that we had per day was like 40 or 50. I'm not sure. But now, yeah, we've not had any cases. Apart from the people coming in from abroad. We still have flights coming in, but as soon as they come in, they're quarantined and tested.
Most of the cases are imported now, like, into Asia. They're all like...
Yeah.
Okay, so the next question. So, where do you think the virus originated from? Like, give me, like, your opinion where you think. What's your honest opinion?
Well, I think it's very interesting, the conspiracy that you brought forward before about the camps, the military, and like a military games, was it? So I think it's interesting from you saying about the military games and how people it was held in Wuhan, then maybe that's how it's got to other countries faster. But honestly, like, I think it was here a lot like earlier than people say, especially since we were told about it in January. I think it was in Wuhan. I think it did originate from Wuhan, but I think it was in other parts of the world also last year. It's weird, like, I know people that have got sick. I know people that have died from pneumonia in December, and it is in the UK, and it is weird how they died of that, and they couldn't detect that it was pneumonia before that, and then it was said that it was pneumonia, and this was before we knew about the virus. I think it's very strange, it's weird.
You know, like, I think 2003 they had the SARS. You know, SARS. Hong Kong and Guangdong in China, and some people think they kind of like modified that coronavirus into, you know, the COVID-19.
So do you think that that was done in the Wuhan facility? Yeah.
SARS, and they were like testing, and then maybe they did some kind of modification on that virus, and then accidentally escaped from the lab?
Yeah, well, I remember at the beginning of this year, it was like you weren't allowed to call it SARS. We were told, like, do not call it SARS. Do not talk about the connection between SARS and the coronavirus. And now people say it's SARS too. So I don't know. Like, I don't know. There's developments in the virus all the time. But yeah, it was weird before, like, they told us not to talk about it in terms of SARS, because apparently it wasn't like that at all. But I think also the reason they said that is because the world tried to dumb it down and say, no, it's not as bad as SARS. It's not even as bad as the flu. But yeah, and now, yeah, we can see where it is.
The next question. So globally, how long do you think the coronavirus will last?
I think like the end of 2021 is when we will get a vaccine. But when it comes to actually people having the vaccine, I think a lot of people will refuse to have it. I read an article about New Zealand being one of the highest to say that they will have the vaccine. I think the percentage was still in the 70s. It wasn't 100% of people that said that they will have the vaccine. But yeah, I think it's going to start to be controlled if the vaccine comes out and if the vaccine works. Because I think that there will have to be multiple vaccines, because it's been proven that there's multiple strains of the virus. But yeah, I think also then at the end of 2021 is when the economy in every country is obviously it's going down. But I think then when the virus starts to be controlled is when everything will just drop, and we will, like, the UK is in a recession right now, but I think the whole world is gonna suddenly hit a brick wall when it comes to the economy.
Yeah, I agree. I think like maybe the end of 2021, I think that's when things start to get back to normal, like economically, financially.
Oh, you think economically? I think personally, like me and my partner were just talking about the economy, and yeah, we were saying just how I think, because the government, like in the UK, they will stop issuing furlough at the point of when the virus gets better, and then like all these companies then owe the government money, and then like the interest rates, and I think the economy is gonna plummet next year.
I think, like, I agree. Maybe certain countries will kind of like benefit, but other countries, they will struggle. However, the Asian countries like Thailand, Vietnam, China, Japan, Korea, you will see them like suddenly.
Yeah, I agree with that as well. Yeah, I completely agree. And I think the tourism industry, because Vietnam and other Asian countries have been praised a lot, I think, because Vietnam does run on tourism a lot, and they even encouraged us, like they're still encouraging us now to travel around Vietnam. They even extended the summer vacation for the kids so that people would travel, and there was like discounts offered at resorts with the government intervening to try and like substitute those discounts just to keep the travel industry going here. So I think once the borders open, once like the virus has been controlled, I think Vietnam and the surrounding countries in Southeast Asia, maybe even China, they will come up through tourism. I think it will have a lot of people over here, which is exciting.
Maybe the start of 2021, you'll see a lot of foreigners like wanting to go over to like Vietnam, Thailand, China, Japan, Korea to work, because obviously a lot of their jobs in America, UK, and they want to like maybe move to the other country, especially you'll see a lot of that.
I get because I've done quite a few videos on the coronavirus and just Vietnam in general. That's what my channel is. And I do get a lot, like so many private messages saying like, oh, do you know when the borders are going to be open? Do you know if they're letting in expats yet for work? Yeah. But Vietnam does, they open the borders to some skilled workers, including teachers. They do open it every so often for teachers, for ESL teachers as well, not just international school teachers, for teaching English, which is really good because they do need teachers here, so they have to do that every so often. But flights are very limited. It's very expensive.
In China, like for example, I think only around 30 countries are allowed to come to China. So America, Brazil, India, these kind of countries, like they're not allowed to come to China until they like control the coronavirus situation. So recently, even though in the UK they've like had a massive increase in cases, and they're still allowing like the Brits to come to China.
Wow, that makes you think that there's something going on with the two countries. Like if like that's weird that they would allow the UK to come into the country. I don't know, that's so weird. But when they come in, do they have to be quarantined? Like everyone that comes into the country.
Like I said to you before, quite a lot of imported cases in China from people that come like from other countries into China, mainly in Beijing, Shanghai, and Guangzhou, because at the minute they're the only airports that are allowing like international flights.
But everyone on those flights, do they have to be quarantined then? I assume so.
Yeah, 2 weeks.
Yeah.
Like quite a few people have been tested positive, so my guess is they probably picked it up in the airport or on the plane.
So do you still have domestic flights?
Yeah, domestic flights.
Yeah. Oh yeah. So if they're coming in, then maybe it's in the airport, and then that's not good.
Okay, so final question. Yeah, so is your family safe in the UK?
Oh my gosh, I worry about my family every single day. I hate that they're over there. I wish I could just bring them all here. But yeah, unfortunately that's not the case. But I don't know. They're in the north. The north continues to be talked bad about and blamed in the media and by the government by saying places like Bradford, Manchester, Birmingham, Leicester, all these places have to be locked down because they're not abiding by the rules. And I think like my parents are from North Yorkshire, and I think it's really unfair to say that it's just these places when it's the whole country. But when I read the media, I'm like, where is it? Like, you don't even know where the virus is anymore in the UK. It's everywhere. I don't think it's in clusters. I just think it's everywhere. But I am very worried about my family.
Luckily, like my family, because they live in like a small town, like close to Cambridge, so it's okay. But when I heard the virus, I sent them like 1,000 masks. You know, the N95 masks. They were kind of prepared well before.
That's really good. I feel a lot better now that it's they've made it the law that they made it so you have to wear masks in public. So if you do go to the supermarket, you have to wear a mask. Whereas before, like, I remember my dad saying that he has a mask and he wanted to wear it, but he felt really stupid for wearing it because nobody else was wearing it. And then because there were so many rumors about masks and like how they don't protect you and you don't need to wear a mask, I thought that was so stupid. And now they're saying, actually, what, covering your face, it protects you. Yes, of course it protects you. So I'm glad now the government has said everyone has to wear a mask when they go out. So I'm glad that my parents and my family, like, they feel comfortable enough to wear their masks. And also, like, I know my family like to go to the pub, but they haven't been to the pub for all year, which is nice to know. And my grandma, she stays at home. She's very sad.
Okay, I think that's all the questions I would like to ask. So thank you for having me on and then asking me these questions. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, you too. Yeah, it was very good, very interesting.